Imagine working harder than ever, yet feeling farther from stability than your parents ever did. That's the strange reality confronting millions of young adults across developed and developing economies today. They studied longer, borrowed more, adopted faster, yet somehow ownership feels increasingly distant every year. Houses cost more, education costs more, healthcare costs more, paychecks simply aren't keeping pace. Many blame laziness, smartphones, avocado toast, or attention spans shortened by endless scrolling online. But those explanations feel suspiciously convenient when entire generations report remarkably similar financial frustrations everywhere. Something deeper appears responsible, hidden beneath headlines, politics, culture wars, and personal financial decisions. To understand it, we need to examine how economic ladders changed over several decades quietly. Because today's struggles didn't appear suddenly, they were built gradually through incentives accumulating over time. And once you see the math, many modern frustrations start making uncomfortable economic sense. Let's begin with a simple question. What does economic progress actually feel like personally today? For previous generations, progress often meant buying homes, raising families, and accumulating meaningful assets. Income increased steadily while essential costs remained manageable relative to average wages and opportunities. Economic growth translated into tangible improvements ordinary workers could actually see and experience daily. But somewhere along the journey, growth continued while affordability started moving in another direction. GDP expanded, stock markets climbed, corporate profits increased, yet many workers felt increasingly squeezed. That's where the confusion begins. The economy appears healthy while individuals feel financially trapped. Both observations can be true simultaneously because averages often conceal dramatically different underlying realities. Imagine 10 people sharing dinner while one person suddenly receives 9 extra meals unexpectedly. Average food consumption rises sharply, yet most diners remain just as hungry as before. Modern economies sometimes behave similarly, especially when asset values rise faster than labor income. Assets include houses, stocks, land, businesses, and investments generating value beyond ordinary employment. Labor income means wages earned through working hours, skills, effort, and professional productivity daily. Historically, workers could convert labor income into assets more easily than many can currently today. A factory worker could often purchase property without requiring extraordinary income or inherited wealth. That relationship gradually weakened as asset prices accelerated beyond wage growth across many markets. Housing became the most visible example, transforming shelter into one of society's biggest investments. When homes appreciate rapidly, existing owners become wealthier without necessarily producing additional economic output. Meanwhile, newcomers face rising entry costs simply to access the same housing opportunities available. The ladder remains standing, but the first rung keeps moving farther away each year. This creates a powerful generational divide, often mistaken purely for differences in work ethic. Older generations purchased assets before prices exploded, benefiting from decades of appreciation afterward naturally. Younger generations entered later, confronting inflated valuations and increasingly expensive pathways toward ownership. The timing difference matters enormously, even when effort levels remain relatively similar overall. But housing alone doesn't explain everything. Another major force emerged through expanding educational requirements. Decades ago, many careers required fewer credentials and less upfront financial investment before employment. Today, countless positions demand degrees, certifications, training programs, and years of preparation beforehand. Education can increase earnings, but it also delays asset accumulation during crucial early years. Many graduates enter adulthood carrying debt while simultaneously facing higher housing costs than predecessors. They start the race later, burdened with obligations previous generations often never encountered. Then comes inflation, one of economics' most misunderstood and politically sensitive forces today. Inflation doesn't simply raise prices, it changes relationships between income, debt, and purchasing power. Moderate inflation can help economies function smoothly by encouraging spending and investment over hoarding, but persistent inflation erodes purchasing power when wages fail matching rising living expenses consistently. Even small annual increases compound significantly across years, quietly reshaping household financial realities. People notice groceries becoming expensive because groceries are purchased frequently and remembered emotionally afterwards. They notice rent increases because housing absorbs substantial portions of monthly household budgets. What feels like personal failure may partly reflect changing arithmetic throughout the broader economy. Yet another force emerged quietly: the financialization of everyday economic life across sectors. Financialization sounds complicated, but it often means assets becoming central to economic decision-making. Housing becomes investment. Education becomes investment. Healthcare becomes investment. Everything gains financial logic. The result is strange. Essential services increasingly compete with expectations of financial returns. Investors seek profits. Consumers seek affordability. Those goals don't always align comfortably together. Tension develops because systems optimized for returns rarely prioritize low costs automatically first. This doesn't require villains. Incentives alone can produce outcomes nobody intentionally designed beforehand. Economics often resembles gravity. Individual actions combine into larger patterns, shaping entire societies. Then technology enters the story, bringing extraordinary benefits alongside unexpected economic consequences everywhere. Technology increases efficiency, lowers costs, creates industries, and expands opportunities unimaginable previously. But efficiency doesn't guarantee equal distribution of resulting gains among workers and owners. Some technologies amplify productivity dramatically while reducing demand for certain categories of labor. Workers compete globally, while digital platforms scale across millions of customers almost instantaneously. This creates winner-takes-most dynamics where successful companies capture enormous value with limited staffing. Economic output grows impressively, yet employment growth may not mirror that expansion proportionally. Again, the economy can thrive while individual financial security becomes increasingly uncertain simultaneously. Social media complicates perceptions further by broadcasting lifestyles previously hidden from public view. Comparisons become constant, making economic pressures feel larger and more immediate psychologically today. People compare beginnings against others' highlights, creating distorted benchmarks for financial success expectations. Yet beneath perception issues, genuine structural pressures continue affecting budgets and long-term planning. Delayed home ownership influences family formation, mobility, retirement planning, and broader economic confidence levels. Fewer assets mean fewer buffers against shocks, recessions, layoffs, or unexpected medical expenses. Wealth generates resilience. Income alone often struggles providing equivalent long-term economic protection consistently. That's an important distinction rarely emphasized in everyday discussions about financial responsibility today. Income helps you live. Assets help you withstand uncertainty and participate in growth. Modern economies increasingly reward ownership, even while ownership becomes harder to obtain initially. That's the paradox frustrating many young adults navigating today's economic environment across countries. They aren't merely chasing luxury, many are pursuing milestones previously considered relatively ordinary goals. Stable housing, financial security, family planning, and modest wealth building now require greater effort. Some respond by investing earlier, seeking entrepreneurship, or pursuing alternative income streams online. Others postpone major decisions, waiting for affordability improvements that may never fully arrive. Policymakers debate solutions constantly, yet incentives remain difficult to redesign without unintended consequences. Lower housing prices help buyers but can upset existing owners and financial institutions. Higher wages assist workers but may create different pressures throughout interconnected economic systems. Every solution affects someone else's balance sheet, making reforms politically complicated and contentious. Meanwhile, generations continue adapting individually to structural conditions largely beyond personal control. This creates frustration because personal responsibility remains important but insufficient for explaining outcomes. People sense larger forces operating, even when they struggle identifying them precisely themselves. That's why economic narratives become powerful. They offer explanations for widely shared experiences. Some narratives oversimplify reality. Others ignore uncomfortable evidence contradicting preferred assumptions entirely. The truth usually sits somewhere between personal choices and broader systemic economic incentives. Individual decisions matter greatly, but starting conditions influence available choices from the beginning. A marathon remains difficult regardless, yet starting miles behind changes the experience dramatically. Young generations often feel that distance, whether statistics fully capture it or not. Their frustration reflects both perception and measurable economic shifts occurring over decades globally. Understanding those shifts doesn't solve them immediately, but clarity removes misleading explanations first. And misleading explanations often prevent serious conversations about incentives, ownership, and opportunity structures. Because economics isn't merely numbers, it's the architecture shaping countless life decisions daily. The biggest question isn't whether younger generations feel stuck. Many clearly do today. The deeper question asks whether current systems can restore pathways toward broad-based ownership again. If they cannot, future generations may inherit even greater divides between workers and owners. And if ownership defines prosperity, what happens when prosperity itself becomes increasingly inaccessible?